Well, today's the second day of the first ever Sanctuary Cities Conference. It has gathered local politicians from across the country for the collective purpose of defying immigration law. They don't lack support in America's largest cities. Top officials from both Los Angeles and New York have announced they will defy the administration's efforts to suppress sanctuary cities and enforce immigration law.
In Los Angeles, we don't separate children from their families because it's inhumane. In Los Angeles, we don't demonize our hardworking neighbors just because they speak a different language or come from a different country. That's un-American.
The Department of Justice will also take all lawful steps to claw back any funds awarded to a jurisdiction that willfully violates 1373.
New York City is the safest city in this country. And so, you know, if the president wants to put that at risk to make a point to a dwindling base of support, then he is being extremely irresponsible, but that's nothing new for this administration.
Peter Markowitz is a professor at the Benjamin Cardozo School of Law, also an immigration advocate who spoke at day 2 of today's conference. He joins us now. Peter, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So you just heard the mayor of Los Angeles describe American immigration law as, quote, inhumane. You've described it that way, too, in a piece last summer in the New York Times. I think there are legitimate disagreements in immigration, but it seems a little insulting to the country, a country that has allowed 11 million people to live here illegally, giving them all benefits, by the way, at great expense, to describe that country as inhumane or its laws as cruel. What country has done as much as we have for illegal aliens?
Well, actually, there are very few things that you can find consensus among Republicans and Democrats in this country. But one thing that everybody seems to agree on is that our immigration laws are deeply broken. And so it's not at all surprising that the mayors of the cities that have the largest immigrant populations, who see the harm up front of a massive deportation system that's ripping apart families, identify the reality that those are, at base, inhumane laws.
You know, I just find so remarkable the insult to the population. I mean, immigration has upsides for sure, but it also has real costs, measurable costs, which have been measured, actually. Costs to American citizens who are here and born here and all that. And their views and lives are never taken into account in this equation. It's you're being mean to people here illegal. What about everybody else?
Actually, to the contrary, the vast majority of the reliable studies that have been conducted show both that immigrants make our country more vital economically for all Americans, but also that sanctuary laws, the laws that were discussed at today's conference, make our cities and our country safer. So very much we're thinking not just about the immigrant population, but about all Americans and the way we benefit from immigration.
So I know that you're a law professor, not an economist, but a lot's been written on this, and I'm a little surprised you haven't read it. So the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, which has existed a long time, but under the Obama administration, 2010, did a study on this, and here's part of what they concluded. I'm reading it verbatim. Illegal immigration has tended to depress both wages and employment for low-skilled Americans, a disproportionate number of whom are black men. Now, I don't know of any economist who would dispute that fact. When you flood a market with low-wage labor, it hurts people at the bottom, and it is disproportionately black men. Why don't you admit that? And does that bother you?
Right. Well, actually, there's been a wealth of data showing that immigrants actually are a boon to our economy. But to the extent that immigrants are being exploited and underpaid, the reason why that's happening is because Republicans have obstructed comprehensive immigration reform,
I'm sorry,
which would allow them to have work authorization and then be able to get paid a living wage.
I want you to be able to give your point of view, but I also want you to address what I just said. So the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, this is not some right-wing group, has said what I think every economist has said who's looked at it carefully, that there are parts of the economy that benefit from illegal immigration and low-wage immigration. Rich people benefit disproportionately, but low-wage workers, disproportionately black men, are not beneficiaries of this. Are you denying that specific fact, which is a meaningful fact?
So you could pick and choose one line from one report. What I'm telling you is that you're actually reading one line from one report, and what I'm telling you is that the theme that runs across the economic research is that immigrants are a boon to our economy and are a boon to American workers, and that's why...
Including at the lower end of the labor scale? So people working for minimum wage benefit from illegal immigration? Are you saying that with a straight face? And what can you cite that proves that? There's not one thing ever written that proves that.
What I'm telling you with a very straight face is that if you're worried about low-wage workers, you need to stop the mechanisms of exploitation that allows immigrants to be underpaid. And the way to do that is to create a pathway to legalization such that they can no longer be exploited and we can level the playing field.
Well, I think you have a fair point. They are exploited in a lot of cases. That's a real thing. But I'm not talking about people who broke our laws to come here from other countries and work under the table. I'm talking about people who are born here, including black people whose families have been here for 400 years. We have some concern for them. If we're the U.S. government, our whole purpose is to look out for them. And we're not. And we're not even talking about them. And you keep dodging questions about them like they don't matter, but they do matter. And will you acknowledge that they are not helped by this? In what sense could they be?
Actually, I'm not dodging the question. I'm telling you directly. If you care about that sector of the labor economy, there is something that you could do. You could talk to your Republican allies and tell them to pass comprehensive immigration reform, get people work authorization such that they can't be exploited in ways that are harmful to our economy.
But wouldn't it just be a lot simpler to acknowledge the law of supply and demand and know and affirm that when you have an overabundance of low-wage labor, the rate of labor goes down, wages go down? Are you denying that fact?
If you talk to the agricultural economy, agricultural sector, if you talk to the construction sector, if you talk to the service sector, what they're going to tell you is that immigrant labor is vital. Blue-collar immigrant jobs are vital to our economy, and that absent that labor, the American economy is going to slow, and that is going to harm all Americans.
So this is like a macro question, but I wonder if it ever occurs to you, how did you, a liberal law professor from New York City, wind up the spokesman for big employers who exploit low-wage labor? How did that, do you ever think, like, how did I get in this place? You're defending agricultural and service sector employers who pay low wages. Like, did you think you were going to wind up in that place when you were a kid?
I'm not sure we're having the same conversation.
I think we are.
What I'm saying is what the same thing that the organized labor said when we had the last time that we came close to comprehensive immigration reform. They supported comprehensive immigration reform because they knew that was good for all American workers. And it was Republicans that obstructed that. And so to the extent that there is exploitation of immigrants and that is harmful to our economy in ways that I completely agree,
but
you should speak to your Republican allies who obstructed comprehensive immigration reform.
You are taking the line of big employers, of the plutocrats, of the Chamber of Commerce, and you're repeating it verbatim. You're saying unless we have massive amounts of foreign low-wage labor, it's going to be very hard on our economy. No, it's going to be very hard on people who seek to pay lower wages to their workers, isn't it?
No, actually, the laws of supply and demand operate regardless of our immigration laws, right? And so that's why, and that is why we have, one of the reasons why we have a large undocumented population is because our immigration system is so broken that there aren't legal mechanisms for the blue-collar immigrant workers to obtain lawful status.
But we can't throw any of these people out under any circumstances because that's inhumane. Wouldn't that just be the fastest? If you're not here legally, leave. Everyone's wages goes up. We have got a lot less poverty in the state of California, New York, Illinois, and Texas. Why is that bad? Because why exactly?
Yeah, so it turns out it doesn't work that way because it's not realistic to think that there are 11 million undocumented people that we're going to round up when we're already spending more on immigration enforcement than we are on all other federal law enforcement combined.
Professor, we don't agree, but I appreciate your coming on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.